Hello, everybody out there. My name is Mason McRoberts. Hope everybody's doing well. I wrote my paper about Mao Zedong. Sorry if I look a little rough. I haven't had a haircut in a little bit, as I'm sure all of us haven't. Let's get into this. So, Mao Zedong from birth was kind of given a bad hand as he was born into a family of peasant farmers. However, as we all very well know, Mao transcended all this and was able to become the chairman of the Communist Party in China. I have three reasons I believe Mao was able to accomplish this, and these reasons were his dedication to education, his past life experiences as a peasant, and his determination for the Communist Party. As a kid, Mao attended school in his hometown, where they mainly taught skills for careers such as record keeping and counting for money and whatnot. But he had to leave school early to help on his family's farm because they needed help. They didn't have much workers. But a few years later, Mao left his family to go pursue more education, higher education, in a town nearby that offered this higher education. This showed that Mao was willing to do whatever was necessary to get education. And I know it wasn't easy to leave your family to go make it on your own, get schooling in some other place you're not familiar with. When Mao rose to power, he focused a lot of his reforms on education by making education more accessible and cheaper to people in China. He also built schools and was very active within those schools. Second reason that Mao was able to overcome his early hard life was his life experience as a peasant. See, when Mao was a kid, he was real young during the revolutions such as the Boxer Rebellion and other rebellions that happened in China at that time. Mao was able to recognize the favor that the peasants showed for these rebellions and stuff. He also witnessed on years where rice harvest was low, the peasants in his town rise up and demand their share from the higher classes and the landlords who actually own the land. Mao, after rising to power, realized that the lower class could play a big part after he rose to power in the Communist Party before they rose to power in China. Realized that the peasants in the lower class could play a huge role in revolutions which contradicted his mentor and idol, Karl Marx, who wrote the Communist Manifesto, who Mao based a lot of his philosophy upon. The third reason, I believe, for Mao's success in rising from nothing was his determination. This was all the more evident in the Long March. Mao and his Red Army escaped the grasp of the Nationalist Army, who was trying to overthrow them as the Nationalists had them surrounded. And they broke through the Nationalist front line and marched for over a year through wintry weather and mountains all the way from southeast China all the way up to the north. This long, grueling march showed determination in and of itself. As you know, there were times where he was tired, but he kept going on because he wanted the Red Army and the communist and himself to thrive. The reasoning goes along with this reasoning for determination goes along with the educational reasoning, as he was determined to get an education to be able to better himself and improve his life. So some of my sources that were helpful in writing this were Mao's poems. Mao was well known for writing many of poems, but one of these poems that helped me the most was actually entitled The Long March. In this poem, he describes the terrain he had to face and the rest of the Red Army had to face during the march. And there were times where he wanted to give up and it felt like there was no hope. But he didn't. He kept on going. And in the beginning of the poem, it describes why he was so determined. It says that the Red Army will not be stopped. This saying right here goes along with the relentlessness that Mao showed throughout his reign. A second one of my sources that helped was an article by Zhu King-jun, and this article describes the educational reform Mao put into place, such as lowering prices for school and building new schools. He was also, what I found really interesting in this source, he was actually in the schools a lot and made friends with the educators, which goes a long way in a kid's life and the life of an educator, knowing that you're backed by the government. What I think I could have done better in this paper was writing more about the connections that he learned in his education from reading people like Karl Marx and how his policies based on Marx. What I think I really done well was finding these poems and being able to base a lot of my paper on how Mao feels in these poems. Thank you, and that is my presentation.